The story of Cloud Retainer as one of Liyue's renowned Adepti is a tale as old as time in Teyvatnian history, with many historical records speaking of a blue and white crane bringing forth winds to cleanse the land from the plagues. Many tales depict the brilliant tinker with a penchant for slight arrogance and pride should her work be slighted. But nevertheless, Cloud Retainer is a regal figure in Liyuean mythology, and today, I want to give the summarized story of our lovely bird mom. The oldest record of Cloud Retainer's existence was in the full record of the Pristine Pavilion. According to the lore, the drought demon ran amok, setting the naked wilderness ablaze. The people's hearts were fumigated, driving them to the brink of despair. On top of the drought, a noxious gas had begun to spread through the land. As plague and drought wrought the land, the people prayed for divine intervention. And there, an Adeptus arrived and borrowed the wind to retain the clouds. Immediately, the clouds gathered together and abundant rain burst forth from the heavens. Drought and plague were both driven away, and the people were saved. It was this Adeptus, respectfully addressed as Cloud Retainer by later generations, that saved humanity from the demon of drought in their hour of need. It was after this incident that Cloud Retainer met Rex Lapis and joined the Guili Assembly. During the earlier era of the Archon War, the values and compassion of Morax, the god of contracts, won the favor of Cloud Retainer and the other Adepti, and so they followed him into battle, campaigning widely across the land. There she would engage in friendly rivalries with her fellow Adepti, sing merry songs with the Yakshas in the heart of Jueyun Karst, and even get into intellectual debates with Guizhong over their mechanisms. She'd also get into competitions with Mountain Shaper and Mooncarver over the littlest of things, and she'd use her creations to sometimes get the upper hand. The Adepti and the other disciples bear witness to these competitions as humble spectators, and Cloud Retainer takes pride and joy in her winnings. Though, she does state that she can get somewhat prideful when she lost to her colleagues, such as when the impartial Morax chose Guizhong's blueprints to be the more superior. But Cloud Retainer does know when she is bested, regardless of her emotions. It was during these encounters that Guizhong introduced her ballista, a form of weaponry that Cloud Retainer would continue to perfect as a final testimony to their fallen companion. She recounts the times with fondness, believing that while the legacy of her comrades has continued with the newer generations, she can't help but feel lonely and reminisce about the people she had lost. During Guizhong's death, Xiao states that Cloud Retainer was quiet throughout the remaining battles for Liyue Harbor, only speaking when she must summon her sigils into battle. Over the years, her compassion has driven her to take in many disciples. Watching them often brings her great joy, as they embody the hopes that her friends once cherished, and thus through them their spirits lived on. This is precisely why she's so protective of her younger disciples. At times, her overflowing desire to care for them seems to overwhelm and confuse them, but she doesn't mind. After all, the young ones have never known the agony of being separated from their friends, nor beheld the sight of blood-soaked battlefields. As long as they stay safe and sound, that's all that matters. She took Ganyu as her disciple some time ago after her signing of the contract with Rex Lapis. She treated Ganyu like her own daughter, and often cared for her throughout the years. Cloud Retainer oftentimes has stories about Ganyu, but Ganyu can also recount that Cloud Retainer would often make toys and knickknacks for her, but that she was too young to appreciate them or understand their more intricate mechanisms. But they remained close throughout the years, with Cloud Retainer often visiting her or querying about her well-being nowadays. Furthermore, Cloud Retainer met Shunhao when the latter was a young girl still at 6 years old. Cloud Retainer met her in a cave, battered and furious as she was locked in a fierce battle with the mysterious monster that her people sacrificed her to. Cloud Retainer dealt with the monster, yet when she approached the child, the young one couldn't lower her guard out of both fear and rage. Only after Shunhao truly accepted that Cloud Retainer had no intention to harm her did she lower her guard. Shunha then passed out without a word. Cloud Retainer has been assisting Shunha's recovery for several decades, as well as the suppression of her murderous impulses, with the help of the other Adepti and the red ropes that she had created for her. Cloud Retainer has been facilitating her training up until Shunha slowly began acclimating herself as well to Liyue Harbor's customs. Cloud Retainer's current disciple is a young girl by the name of Shuyu, who was the granddaughter of Cloud Retainer's previous disciple, Yuandai. Currently, they live together in a humble home in Liyue Harbor, with Shuyu training to become a powerful disciple, much like her granny. During the Archon quest, we first meet Cloud Retainer after succeeding in numerous domain trials. She meets us in her avian form and demands to know why we disturbed the peace of her abode. When we tell her that Rex Lapis was assassinated, she demands the quashing of Liyue Harbor, believing that only a retaliation of this magnitude would justify such transgression. However, with enough appeasing from Traveler and Paimon, she dismisses that claim and asks them to leave. The next time that we see her is in the Battle of Liyue against Xiao, in which she and the other Adepti assist the god of Vortex by manning the Guizhang Ballista. It is after this battle that Cloud Retainer, as well as the other Adepti, relinquish to Ningguang and the Liyue Qixing the responsibility of keeping the people safe, as they believe the time of the Adepti have passed on. Over the years ever since her first appearance, she slowly grew as a person the more she reintegrated herself into Liyue society. She honors her contract with Liyue in a more subdued approach, appreciating the times gone by while recognizing that humanity must move on with its own independence. Now, she resides in Liyue Harbor not just to live closer to her previous disciples, but also to slowly acclimate herself to the changing developments of the city. With her disciple Shuyu, she lives undercover as the humble Xianyun, a fierce woman with red-rimmed glasses, with a penchant for criticizing ancient texts and the authenticity of historical accounts about Adepti and gods alike. In her character's stories, she delves deeper into this perspective as a tinkerer, recognizing that though she no longer defends Liyue as an immortal god, perhaps she can extend her assistance in other, more mundane avenues. The fruits borne by millennia of such devotion have been great indeed, and naturally, it is this wisdom that sets her apart from mortal folk. That they live such short lives seems a great pity for her. For even if it was her desire to do so, she would not have the time to teach these beings the full extent of her wisdom in its purest form. Besides, those with more limited faculties often found it difficult to comprehend such profundity, even with her guidance. But after an intense bout of thinking, something occurred to her. Though mere mortals might have great difficulty apprehending the laws of nature through experience, she herself could invest truths into ingenious devices, and thus enlighten humankind through the medium of mechanics. Firstly, given that the laws of nature are profound and enigmatic, if she could dismantle them into a myriad of smaller principles and spread this knowledge through the world, perhaps this would help humans grasp them better. Secondly, basing production on the principles of mechanics would save an inestimable amount of manpower and resources. If machines could be used to wash clothes, people would no longer have to lie there in their beds listening to the sound of clothes being laundered in the dead of night. And if people could use machines to walk, there'd no longer be such a thing as a long, arduous journey. Nowadays, the people themselves could save their fields through irrigation. The fires of war were all but extinguished, and the people were content, now longing for prosperous lives. In an age like this, upholding contracts and protecting the world was no longer simply a matter of slaying monsters and exorcising demons. Creating mechanisms to improve people's lives was another equally valid way to achieve the same end. Currently, as a citizen, Xianyun has acclimated to the hustle and bustle of Liyue Harbor, but not without her own problems. She often gets into difficult situations due to her sharp tongue and quick wits. But nevertheless, she is a respected individual whose reputation definitely preceded her. Many look to her as a taciturn and well-spoken woman with a great eye for detail in the sort. And hopefully, with enough time spent in Liyue and as Shuyu's new caretaker, she'll learn to appreciate the smaller aspects of humanity's prosperity. My name is Aster, and thank you for joining me on the summarized story of Xianyun's lore. Bye-bye!